Go for it.
Welcome to PNN KEXU, Poor People's Revolutionary Radio on 96.1 FM on the dial in Oakland and streaming live online at www.poormagazine.org/radio. This is Lamonte, your co-host, formerly houseless poverty scholar with Wood Street Commons and Poor Magazine family in studio with Pope Poets and formerly housed poverty scholars Tiny and Mutiaro.
Happy Houseless Workers' Day. Happy Houseless Workers' Day. Because just to stay alive, we work in every single day. Happy Poor Workers' Day. From your dirty plates to your toilet bowls scraped. Without this hard labor, how can you have your sunny vacays? Happy Houseless Workers' Day. I'm out here standing in the sun with a cardboard cup for hours begging for a little love or a little changed luck. Happy Poor Workers' Day, disrespected, bored or terrorized, even though we watch your baby sleep, eat, and play. So you can perpetuate your 50-hour corporate workday. Happy Houseless Workers' Day, scrounging in dumpsters for a scrap of food or a bit of bread. Sun up, sun down, our work is all across the occupied towns, tinged and watched with your disdain. What are those bums doing? Why don't they get a job? Begins your sentence of hate. Happy Houseless Workers' Day. The work we do, you don't consider work. Why? Because it doesn't fit into your capitalist model of a work site. Maybe because of your fear of your proximity to my life. Collecting cans and collecting can'ts. Happy Houseless Workers' Day to all the workers so close to the end of a paycheck that they can't pay their light of rent into another day. Happy Houseless Workers' Day to all the workers doing the work to stay alive, holding on by a thread, just a tent or a bed, unsure why they should even fight to survive instead of disappear. Because don't you want us all to die? Yeah, you listen to PNN, not CNN, people. That's Poor People's Revolutionary Radio. And we hear on live and direct from this small part of unpimped, unsold, unbought, untold Mama Earth that us houseless people call homefulness, a homeless people's solution to homelessness. And listen to Auntie Frances with her scholarship.
I was at People's Park in Berkeley. Well, I'm a 60s radical, black hippie, whatever. So I knew about congregating together. And that camaraderie, that comfort of having your folks in your circle, in your campground, because that's all you had was each other. Yeah, so we bonded together, we leaned on each other, we knew where the places where that was the main objective was where they feeding that now. So it was it was a day-to-day thing. Where they feeding that now. But just, that camaraderie, that you had your group, you had your campground, you had your folks. And that's what kept us alive. First
You just heard from Auntie Frances Moore, one of the powerful poverty scholars from the new movie Crushing Wheelchairs, speaking from her experience with homelessness and the ways that we build support and communities on the streets. We have another benefit screening on the trailer September 25th at 6 p.m. at East Side Arts Alliance. Help this powerful movie get out. We poverty scholars say we aren't acting, we're living. From eviction to more relevant removal once we are houseless, on today's Poor People's Radio podcast, we speak with houselessness, formerly houseless poverty scholar from Tovagar, aka LA. We are powered We're a powerful eviction resistors fighting scumlords' illegal evictions. Then we moved to Hashun, aka right here in Oakland, to talk to you about yet another anti-poor people, anti-houseless people move by Oakland City Council member Ken Houston, set to make the violence we're facing even more.
Oh, Mateo. Yeah, I just want to lift up our relatives right now struggling in this heat,
Man,
right?
it's hot.
Right? And try to be hot inside. We'll just try to be hot outside and stay alive. So many relatives, even in places like Fresno, die on the streets because of straight up exposure. So just lifting up in prayer as we humbly move into these violent and really difficult movements in this time right now that we're dealing with, right? I just wanted to say also, when folks who heard Auntie Francis, for those of you might be listening from Tabangar, we also will be in Tabangar, LA for the weekend of the 26th through the 28th with benefit screenings of the trailer of that powerful movie, Crushing Wheelchairs. So check us out, hit us up. We definitely want to see you. Having said that, we are blessed to have a warrior fighting these scam lords. We have so many warriors all across occupied so-called California fighting to keep relatives inside, because we all know that before we were houseless, we were housed, and most of us were evicted. So let's not ever disconnect or not get that twisted. So we want to bring in some folks, a beautiful sis from LA Tenants Union, an organizer, just a straight up fighter and community. See, Lali, welcome to Poor People's Radio.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me.
For sure. Thank you for being with us today. Tell us a little bit about some of the work of the union down there and what you guys have been doing just over the last couple of years.
Yeah. So the LA Tenants Union is a autonomous social movement led by tenants that are also facing, you know, threats of displacement, harassment, eviction. So we're not a nonprofit. We're not a service organization. Um, a lot of us are like neighbors, fighting for other neighbors. And none of us are experts. None of us are like, you know, attorneys. Um, and I'm in the Echo Park local of the Tenants Union. Um, and that's one of the newer locals. Um, the Echo Park local started a little over a year ago. Um, and you know, most of the work in the union is, or like one of our strategies is like collectivizing our problems, right? And so um, when community members come to our meetings, um, understanding our issues as a collective problem, and that it's something that we're all responsible to fight for. um, and so one of the strategies is by organizing sometimes whole buildings um, that are facing like a threat of displacement, like an eviction of the whole building, or like um, harassment, or like, slum conditions, um, and organizing as like a tenant association, because we believe that we have more power when we're organized together than if, like, one person is like um, might be facing something that other neighbors might also be going through. And so starting to talk to each other, making a strategy together, um, and knowing that you're backed up by a movement of people that's willing to fight with you. um, and yeah, I think I can talk a little bit about some examples in our local, um, and a little bit about what the union has been doing during the ICE siege of LA. Um,
Please.
yeah. For example, like this picture you have here is of leaders from the Mohawk Tenants Association. Um, they were being threatened with evictions because the landlord wanted to renovate their building. Um, and so, different attorneys were like, why even fight it? You guys are, it's legal. The landlord can do that. It's their right. Um,
Wow.
and, you know, them along with an organizer in our local, Lupita, really like created like a public pressure campaign, right? And like targeted their, as you call, their scum lord, um,
Mm.
and like identifying like, when people talk about gentrification or like eviction, it always just seems like who's on the other side, who's facing the effects, but actually someone is making a decision to do that. You know, like who's the person that has the power to decide to like you know completely change the future of your life. Like making you potentially like unhoused, taking away everything you've known as like stability. Like it's crazy, but sometimes it's just like one or two people. And so part of the strategy of the tenants union too is like identifying like who owns your building, and like doing some research to identify who the who those individuals might be. And sometimes it's just like a mom and pop landlord, as they say, and sometimes it's a big corporate landlord. But at the end of the day, they have very similar. They have like the same interest, which is to displace our people to make more money. Um, but just like some of those landlords have more resources to do that. The big corporate landlords have way more resource, have more money, have more attorneys on their side. Um, and so, with the Mohawk Tenants Association, they organized, um, and they had like a public pressure campaign. So they kind of exposed like who the landlords were, um, and targeted them with like protests. They had actions in their building to invite the community to learn about their struggle, um, and to kind of reclaim that space, because when your landlord is trying to evict you, they try to make you feel like you're not in your own home,
Mm.
and they try to remind you that they own it. And so some of our strategies is like reclaiming that space and like having events in your yard, um, inviting the rest of the community and kind of like taking over, you know. And even though it seems kind of like, oh, like you're just having a barbecue, but also like politicizing those events too, and using that as opportunities to to do outreach to neighbors and to like make these fights public, um, because we're always just seeing in the news like like evictions this, evictions that, but like where are these stories of resistance where neighbors are
Mm.
coming together to fight back? And so um like publicizing this like on our social media. So we the tenants union is trying to like put more stuff like online, like videos and pictures, like documenting what we're doing, to really show other people that it's possible,
Mm.
um,
Ashe.
that
I
they wouldn't be by themselves. Yeah.
No, that's beautiful, and so much love to y'all. So many levels of things that you said brought up. I mean, we have relatives up here trying to do the same thing, and I'm I mean, a couple things. First of all, sometimes these scam lords are so arrogant that they don't even care. And so I'm just curious about, how who like in your work, how many of the folks have been pressured. We know that ultimately public pressure is extremely powerful, right? And using media as a tool is really important. We had an elder here, 79-year-old elder, who'd been in her home for, decades. And these two people bought it and they didn't care every single thing we pulled out on them. And then they still evicted her. And she, of course, now is still houseless. Um, so I'm just curious about that. But then also, in addition, how is some of the work that you're doing to fight this violent kidnappings and a so-called ICE? How is that in sort of integrating with the work that you all are doing?
Yeah, those are good questions. I hate to like humanize a landlord. I'm
I
not gonna,
know.
but they're not all different, and I think different things like move them, and so it is like important to do. Here, let me like move away from actually where my landlord lives.
Probably a good idea.
Um, but it is like important to do some research, like, and
Mm,
sometimes like these really young like investor landlords, they're really like online.
mm,
The Mohawk Street Tenants Association, their landlords were like in their mid to late 20s,
wow.
and so they have like like we'll have like active Instagrams and like kind of like public, trying to be like influencers or public figures.
Mm,
So those really care about like their public image, and like sometimes just like testing like what works, like what's getting them to like a reaction from them.
yeah.
um some of them care more about mostly about money. So sometimes the strategy is like, okay, how do we withhold our money from them? How, like,
Mm,
is it like going on rent strike? Is it like publicizing, or publicly shaming them? So I think like it takes some time to figure out kind of like what moves, what like gets a reaction from them, and how are we able to pressure them. um but so folks will try a little bit of like everything, like
mm,
trying um to like expose them, like call the city like officials or whatever on them, to be like, hey, this is what they're doing, like exposing them online, putting their pictures, organizing rent strikes, um
that's what's up.
No
like
doubt.
protesting is also like, direct action is a huge part of like our strategies, or like our tactics, and like um I don't think any of them like for their neighbors to see that there's a whole community
Mm,
showing up at their doorstep, and
yeah.
we've had like, we've done like protests, for example, at the Mohawk Street Tenants Association. Their landlord was in Beverly Hills, and it was like 100, like more than 100 of us, and the
Wow.
neighbors were coming out being like, oh my god, I can't believe like that he's doing that, like, and we're trying to give us money. They were just like dollars, like,
I love
um
that.
and or people like waving at us through the windows, like supporting, or just being like,
Mm,
yeah, like, screw that guy. um but I think in terms of like what the tenants union is like doing right now with like the kidnappings of our people, um like we yes, we do like tenant organizing and we fight for eviction, but at the end of the day, we're trying to build like a mass poor people's movement.
mm,
And
Oh,
we're like, our people are not just tenants, our
Ashe.
people our people are whole people, and kidnapping is a form of displacement,
Ashe.
and so it's like we're fighting for people to not be thrown out of their homes, but ICE is kidnapping folks to take them to incarcerate them
Yeah.
into detention centers, and so that's displacement too.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
um ICE has been targeting, at least in Echo Park. They took an unhoused person, and um I don't like, and you all have probably heard this too, but they don't really care if people have like papers or like documentation or not. But like
Yeah.
if you're living on the street and you don't have like your ID or your stuff on hand, like they're not gonna be like doing their like research. And so like the the tenants union has been like, it really depends on like the neighborhood. Like some neighborhoods, some locals have like points where are more vulnerable, where there's been more targeting. Like there's some neighborhoods that have Home Depots, which are the Home Depots have been like a huge like site of like violence. Um, and so the tenants union has been setting up like eviction defense centers, like posting up a tent and having shifts of people posted up from like 6 a.m. to like noon every day since the raid started. Um, and some other locals, for example, like the Echo Park local, um, we've been organizing a car patrol. So like folks patrolling in their car, responding to like reported sightings of ICE kidnappings. Um, and so it like, I mean, I can't even just like begin to explain like the level of like violence
Yeah.
and like horrors that's been like for our community. Like some people have not been going outside and have been staying at home. They're missing they're missing like doctor's appointments. Um, and like the tenants union has been also collaborating on doing like when school started, like posting up at the schools so that like our youth can go to school safely.
Mm, mm,
Um, and our local started a food distribution program to give food to our members that have been impacted by the raids and like are scared to go to the grocery store.
yeah,
And I mean, all of this is just like so connected. Like
of
people
course.
are, people aren't going to work because of the raids. People are losing income, and then they can't pay the rent. You
Yeah,
know, and
exactly.
so
I I wonder, sorry I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I wonder specifically on the issue of just the rent piece itself. And I mean, maybe these are things that are hard to track, but if people aren't paying the rent, of course, the scamblers aren't trying to get thrown down any love. So I don't know if there's been any notices or you guys have been raising money to help them pay the rent or just because some of the stuff that folks up here have been doing is raising money to help people pay rent. I'm just curious about some of that as well because at the end of the day, right, we can't stop the scam alert and their their pinche notices, right? I'm
yeah,
just curious if any of that has happened.
yeah. I mean, I think it's yes. Like we're definitely like seeing people like fall behind on rent and start to get notices. And the way like the tenants union and some folks also like autonomously have been like doing fundraisers to like for vendor buyouts or for like fundraising for some of our members who like aren't able to get work right now. um and it's kind of like, you know as they say, like survival pending revolution. Like we're trying to like fundraise, but there's only so much we can fundraise,
Yeah,
and at the end of the day we're just fundraising it to give it to the landlord, you
yeah,
know and like
right,
crisis after crisis, like landlords keep profiting off of it,
right,
like they
right.
profited
Which,
the pandemic, they profited through the fires, and
right,
like they still want their bottom line, they still want.
yeah.
And so one of our demands as a tenants union is our political demands is towards the state, and that the state needs to provide relief, and they need to do an eviction moratorium,
Mm,
because
Mm.
that's what
Yes.
would give people the peace of mind to say, you know what, I'm not gonna risk my life um to like just to be able to pay the rent, but some people are sometimes they're like, it's like, who am I more scared of, my landlord or ICE, you
Hmm.
know and like, but
yeah,
the safest place to be during the raids is inside your home.
thank
um,
you.
Right.
and
Yeah,
so that those are the decisions people are making, you know um,
exactly.
and we really need this, like, pressuring the state to intervene and to pass an eviction moratorium. And today, the county the county board of supervisors like introduced a motion for like $16 million for rental assistance, and that like came about from like pressure from the tenants union since January, since the fires. And
Nice.
so they're just,
Congratulations.
they're just getting to do this, and obviously it's not an eviction moratorium, but we think it's a good step in the right direction, and we're going to continue pressuring for that because that's what our people need. um
Oh,
yeah.
thank you, hon. We're running out of time. Can you tell listeners and viewers how they can support y'all on your IG handles or whatever it is?
Yeah, our you can follow the LA Tenants Union Instagram. It's at LA Tenants, I believe. Um, and our local is the Echo Park local of the Tenants Union, and it's Echo Park Latu, Echo Park LATU. Um, and you can become a dues paying member. Or if you'd like to learn more about some of our fundraising like campaigns, you can reach out to us through Instagram.
Ashe. I just want to say, piggybacking off the beautiful work. I mean, this is one of the reasons that we fight every day to name that Mama Earth is not for sale, right? That we have to decommodify from this bloodstained dollar economy that's getting all of our relatives, from one way or the other. Thank you so much, Silali. So much love to you, to the work that y'all are doing. And yeah, from all of us to all of you, big, big, big love.
Keep up the fight.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, family. See
So
you
much.
very soon. All right. See you very soon. Okay. You're watching and listening to Poor People's Radio on PNN, not CNN, people. That's Poor People's Revolutionary Radio right here on Unbought, Unsold, Unpimped, Unplayed Mama Earth in the occupied village of Uchun. That's Oakland, as the settlers call it. And yeah, trying to unsell Mama Earth
That's right.
every damn day. Um, I wanted to shift gears a little bit and talk a little bit about what we're dealing with right here in Uchun, right? For listeners and viewers, we're going to be inviting our sister Leger, who's with Street Commons and also Homefulness resident, onto here. Is she with us yet?
Yes,
Okay,
she's
cool.
senior.
And before she says anything, I want to just name that there was a whole hullabaloo about Measure W, right? Which I like to say, Measure W for what? But whatever, sidebar. But how this is the big solution, right? Oh, Measure W is going to provide housing, money for housing, right? There was a whole politrickster series of meetings. A lot of us poor folks did not get heard. They finally let us get heard later, whatever. But in all of those talks, there wasn't one mention of stopping the sweeps.
Not at all.
Mm.
And I was just like, whoa, are we like in some kind of a strange sci-fi horror movie here that nobody's in touch?
Right.
Right? And I do need to say this, that Sister Nikki Bass, who, is trying to throw down, and I see her trying to do the good work, but it can't be missed. I can't forget, because I never forget,
Never.
that she was one of the people who signed on to the first encampment management ban. The only holdout was Sister Carol Fife.
No doubt.
Okay, so I just want to frame our conversation today, family and relatives, before we bring in our beautiful Sister Leger, aka Addiction Doula, on PNN, aka EXU, and our beautiful brother Lamont here as co-host, about this conversation about what the heck is Ken Houston doing?
More violence.
Right? Leger, welcome back to Poor People's Radio.
Right. Thank you
What's
for
up,
having
Leger?
me.
Can
Yes,
you tell
hey.
can you tell listeners and viewers what the heck this politrickster Houston is talking about?
Right. And so there's a really big, and you talk about Measure W and everybody's all, hubbubbing around that. Well, there's also these under things going on that they're trying to slide through. city council on the city level. And so Ken Houston is trying to, really champion this encampment abatement policy that will really further criminalize homelessness under the guise of encampment management. And so, what that actually means is that they're going to um, not start, but be more forceful with towing people's RVs without notice. They'll be destroying people's lives and taking all of their things that they need to live and survive, scattering people even more all the way across the city, which what I really want to emphasize for the housed people out there, and we get it. We get that people are like, there's homeless people in front of our house, they're in front of our business, they're this, they're that, but people are getting scattered because their communities that they built where they were kind of out of the way, like Wood Street, we were out of the way. Now they're being destroyed and they're being put elsewhere. And then with this beautiful HMIS system and this continuum of care, people are missing their matches for housing that comes available because they don't know where to find these people at. There's also a lot of medical things that are going on. Lifelong, shout out to Lifelong, who, implemented like mobile clinics to actually come to us instead of us having to leave all of our things behind and go to check up on our health care. They're losing contact with their patients. And so what this is just further dehumanizing us as people that don't actually have a foundation and walls.
Here, here.
Yeah.
And you know, so it looks like, oh, they're cleaning up the city, but it's not. It's not cleaning up the city. It's actually making more in debt the city of Oakland, which it already is. They're in debt. That's why the cabin community on Wood Street got shut down, because the city of Oakland couldn't afford to pay the overseeing nonprofit boss that was renting. So boss was like, hey, hands up, and we walked away. And it's just further criminalization and further trauma to an
Yeah.
already vulnerable population.
Monty, you want to say any words on what your feelings are?
Well, no, I just wanted to speak on the comment mobilization that's going to happen on September 10th at 11 o'clock. Can you speak more of that, Leger?
Right. So on September 10th, there will be a public safety meeting, but there's only 4 members that sit on that committee. And so we're already anticipating that vote will have to be pushed over to the city council meeting, which will be on September 15th at 9 a.m. One, we are going to, tomorrow night, and I sent Mute the link, and also you can follow on Instagram at Wood Street Commons, and you can RSVP tomorrow for the training. We're gonna go more in depth about what this encampment abatement legislation policy, whatever, is going to do, how we can effectively give public comment. Although right now, it's also funny that you brought up Carol Fife. She's actually like the lone warrior. Like
Mm.
everybody else on the city council is really behind this. And so
Wow.
It
it's
makes
it's
no
almost
sense.
like it's gonna pass, unfortunately. But so our approach really with Wood Street, with Care for Communities, Black Solutions Lab, we really want to just highlight the truth at this point.
Mm.
We want to say what the media isn't saying. And so I'm grateful that, we have this opportunity here, is that it's not going to solve anything. These sweeps are sucking up so much money that could be used to house people.
Thank you.
When they're saying that they're offering shelter, that's complete BS. There's not even enough shelter beds. There's like, I think I did a count before. It was like something like 300 in the county. There's over 7,000 unsheltered people in
Wow,
Alameda County.
that's
And so
insane.
even if people did want to take the shelter offers that are non-existent, there's not even enough shelter to offer people at this point. And so just really bringing the light to the community and the frustrated neighbors and the homeowners and the business owners, that we all need to unify together and push back on the city to stop the sweeps. The sweeps is
That
going to
part.
free up a lot of money. You don't need 50
Mm.
police officers to sweep two tents.
Thank you.
Mm.
Thank you. I'm
We
at,
have been living, a single woman, was living on Wood Street for 10
Right.
years. And I never got assaulted or anything like that. Yes, with everything. I mean, look, we got criminals in the White House. You know what I
okay.
mean?
Mm.
Of
Okay.
course, there's a few bad apples in every socio-economic group. But at the end of the day, like when people are getting swept, when they're going through this very traumatic and painful time in their life, they're not fighting back. Honestly, the police are there. We're scared. We're trying to
Thank
run
you.
away from them. So the
Thank you.
fact that they need all these city officials and all this and that and all this big equipment, it's just a big waste of money. It's
I
a big waste of money. And so I think we need the support of the homeowners and the taxpayers to really, push back on the city at this point.
thank you. I want to just back up a little bit too, because I
Yeah.
want to make sure, right, that listeners and viewers understand. Moot just pulled up one of our images from our December 17th action. On December 17th, as Wood Street and Poor Magazine hit both sides of the bay, we were actually demanding sanctuaries, not sweeps,
Right.
right? We were challenging the settler lie,
What's the solution?
right? Exactly. We were challenging the settler lie of so called public land, which isn't public for everybody. It's only public for certain members of the public, raised in class spaces, right? And so that if, God forbid, if you're houseless in public in occupied Uchun or Yalamu or most anywhere in so-called California, don't be caught, because that's an arrestable crime. But then similarly, as Leger just brought up, sometimes it's in the millions, but it's in the thousands of dollars, the amount of police, sheriff, CHP, and DPW. And don't even get me started about the non-profiteers who show up with their fake, you know what, solutions,
doubt.
right,
No doubt.
Mhm.
to these sweeps, violently removing us. And
Mhm.
yes, we die behind those. Let's bring up JT, Evi, Baba, who died on the East 12th Street sweep,
Right.
to Buddha, died out of after Wood Street, because try to stay warm outside when you've lost your community,
Mhm.
right? To James Edward Oakley, Evi Baba from so-called Vallejo, and shout out to the Vallejo Homeless Union. These sweeps kill us. They do not house us, and they do not solve our homelessness. And so what's going on is they're amping up or turning the heat up on that hot water. And what do you think? Where, like Leger said, where do you think we're going to go?
Right.
Really,
You know,
listen
and
to
and also is, we're always constantly trying to change the narrative on who people think, the unhoused is, but there's a large and the fastest growing population, and I'm always saying this, is 55 and up. And why is that? Not because they're drug addicts, not because they're lazy. It's because they're on a fixed income and they can't afford rent. And so we see a lot of people like in other, areas that are tucked away that you don't see living in tents, that are actually living in their cars. And so you're going to push some of these auntie or grandma out on the streets now because you're going to tow her home.
oh,
And we don't think about these things and
that part.
that people
Well,
are losing.
and also thank you for bringing that up. Okay, because what I'm tripping about is how these politicians are riffing off each other.
Well, that's
Tell
what
me,
they
right?
do.
Tell me why Daniel, you know what I want to call him,
Mm.
Politrickster Lurie, the mayor of so-called San Francisco, Occupy Delamo, he passed that RV ban. At the same time, out of the other side of his mouth, oh, we care about, immigrants in San Francisco. No, you don't. There were 400 houseless migrante raza indigenous families living in those RVs. You just put them on the street.
Right.
You just towed their home. Tell me why now this BS that Houston is doing, why does it have a thing about the RVs? Tell me why in San Bernardino they just put up a thing about the RVs.
Right.
They're all learning from each other.
Of course. Of course.
Oh my God. And they talk about the Cracker King like he's the pariah. Don't worry about it. Newsom is coming for you with the same ish.
Right.
It's just so much violence. I just want to have you also name Leger as a resident of homefulness. That we have our own solutions,
Ashe.
No
right?
doubt.
Right? That you all at Wood Street are actually proposing solutions. Where's that?
Solutions that are cheaper
Right? Thank
Right.
to
you.
what's currently
Where's
going
that?
on.
Well, it's like they don't think about like if they gave up some land or some of this hoarded land that they have. Really, Caltrans has so much land. The city of Oakland has land. There's so many vacant units right now. You know, if you gave folks a place where they could be not in front of businesses, not in front of
Okay.
homes, they could have a concentrated area where then all the service providers know exactly where they're at.
That
They can
part.
come and match them. They can get them document ready. They can start, helping them transition into a more permanent housing solution. But they don't think like that. Why? Because we know at the end of the day, it's all about how much more money they can get off
Right.
of this hot topic of homelessness and houselessness right now.
That
And
part.
so we've actually been working to try to, create a pilot program Wood Street Commons has, with other folks and showing the city like, hey, why don't you try this sometime? Why don't you
Okay.
try this for a change? This could save so much more money. But they don't really want to hear that, or they want to water it down, or, they want to bring up all the bad stuff. And so really, all we can do as Wood Street is just keep continuing to make sure that we're at the table trying to bring the voice of
Oh,
people with lived experience and our
Mm.
relatives who are still out there. And so I do actually have some factual data that the city of Oakland has 1,200 short-term beds and 465 beds, but the last point in count said that there was about 5,000 unhoused people in Oakland.
Wow.
So there you go. That's some
Wow.
factual data for you.
I have to say
465.
it, Leger. Gross
Yeah.
misappropriation of
Okay.
our taxpayer dollars.
Okay, thank you. Always bringing that to the clarity. Thank you,
Mm.
Monty. I just want to also just say too that when we talk about warriors, I don't call Carol Fife a politrickster. She's doing her best to actually bring realness in that you know in that politrickster mansion, that Greco-Roman white people's house. But I do want to say it was because of her that we as houseless people even have this studio, that we're at Homefulness, a homeless people
Ashe.
solution, right? Because
Mhm.
she said, no, I'm not going to let them block you. And that was really hard because they tried at every turn. So when we come up with our own solutions, oh no, they do not want us to do them.
Of course not. They know
Mhm.
they're going to succeed.
That part. And they're not going to make the money,
Right.
fill me the paper. That's so
Right.
real, Leger. Tell people again how they can turn up, when they can turn up to get more information. So September 10th at
So
11.
tomorrow at 6:30, you can click this, do this QR code right here that's on the screen.
Okay.
Or if you can't access that, you can go to at Wood Street Commons on Instagram and you can find this same flyer more accessible for you. But more importantly, when we really need folks out there, so that meeting tomorrow is prepping you for the September 15th City Council meeting. We're going to be having a press conference beforehand, and then we need as many people as we can to show up and let them know why this encampment abatement plan is BS and just why it doesn't make sense. It just doesn't
What
make
time
sense.
on the 15th, babe?
9 a.m.
And that's at
City
City Hall.
Council. City
Okay.
Council at what's that? Franco Gowa is where
Oscar Grant
Oscar Grant
Plaza.
Plaza.
Yes. Okay. All right, you relatives, you heard the marching orders. Let's do this. Let's show up. Let's be up, especially for housed relatives, conscious relatives who listen and watching us. Please show up. Please stand up. Either tomorrow night, you can learn more about it, or just come on the 15th at 9 a.m.
Yeah, we need this to stop.
Yeah, we need you all there. All right, Leger, we love you. I will be seeing you in a half a second.
See you later, Leger.
Okay. All right, family.
So that's all for this broadcast of Poor People's Magazine, Poor People's Radio. You can follow us on Facebook, X, or Instagram at Poor Magazine, at Poverty Scholar, and Poor News Network on YouTube. You can also get this complete Poor People's Radio podcast with all the interviews and conversations of any of our previous archive shows on Apple Music, Spotify, iHeart, or wherever you get your podcasts. All power to the who? The people.
Oh, that's what's up. Thank you, family. Appreciate you.